question for you that, a lot of people think about the best catcher in the draft, right? So really,
Hmm.
there's three guys at the top of this draft that are catchers. Um, Bailey, Soderstrom, and Dingler. One of those guys is a prep guy. Two of them are collegiate. And I think that Soderstrom is the prep guy, and it's so hard to judge defense from a high school kid as a
Yeah.
catcher. There's so much more responsibility. The game
Hmm.
it just continues to speed up on you as you jump levels, so that makes it hard. But rank those three for me.
Just to get off the bat, I'm not a Dingler fan. I mean, he's an athlete, freak athlete, and very similar to Dalton Varsho with the Diamondbacks. Just really
Mm-hmm.
athletic catcher, which Varsho gets comps to J2 Realmuto, who had that athleticism and kind of developed as a catcher.
Right.
And Dingler possesses the same thing. He played center field as a freshman, but the numbers in college are just really underwhelming. I think it was sub 270, little power. I mean, he played in cold weather. Yes, Big Ten's not easy to hit in. Yes, he was hurt as a sophomore. Yes, I get it. And the raw power shows up in batting press. So I very well could be wrong with that, but just I want to see a guy perform. And a lot of times when you look at the Adley Rutschmans, and then you even look at Patrick Bailey raked in the ACC as a catcher. So it's just tough for me to say that guy's the best. He's the best defender, I think. He's got a legit arm that's going to play back there. He's legit athleticism, sub 6'6" runner that's going to help him move side to side. He receives well enough, might be obsolete. We'll talk more about that with Soderstrom. But so I think he's third.
Okay.
Now, when you have a college performer who actually outperformed Adley Rutschman in cumulative college stats in year in year out, he has the freshman record for home runs at NC State. As a catcher, he played 3 years, but he's just kind of a good at everything catcher. The bat with aluminum played better than I think it will with wood. He's a catcher, wear and tear of 162. It's hard to hit for juice. I'm thinking like Matt Wieters 20 home runs if the power is legit. Like we're
Right.
talking legit power. And he's a switch hitter, so it's even harder. I mean, it's just being turned around in the middle of the game. I couldn't imagine. So he's a tough pill to crack for me because I the numbers are great, but what I hear isn't great. I've talked to a pitcher who pitched against him, and he said he was just like, you don't remember. He's one of those guys. Like he's like, you
Right.
look at his stat sheet, but you just don't remember the bat. And so he's just kind of one of those guys, but a lot of catchers end up being those guys. So I think he has potential. But the guy that strikes me is Soderstrom. He has bloodlines in the game. His dad was drafted 6th overall out of Fresno State. The bat plays. And the way the game is trending with if robo umps become a thing,
Right.
defense is less and less important.
Less
And he's
important. Right.
athletic, and he's got the athleticism to move enough back there. He doesn't have to receive or call, really he's going to sit down and they're going to tell him what to call in every situation, and pitchers can shake him off. So he's not even going to have to be mature in pitch calling as a young guy, and that's going to develop with time. And he has a good enough arm that's going to play back there, but he has the athleticism to play outfield. And he's really athletic and he's a really good hitter, but the bat's going to play. They're talking about 60 grade hit tool on him, which, I mean, if you get 60 grade hit tool behind the plate, that's, you're a
Yeah.
big leaguer every day. And
Right.
the opportunity to do that from the left side and with projected power and a projectable body, I think is too good to pass up on in that situation. But again, it's all, if you don't think robo umps are going to become a thing, he's not a guy you take because he's not going to play as an outfielder same way Gonzalez would. The bat doesn't play in a corner outfield. He better be athletic enough to play right up the middle. But if he's behind the dish, that bat plays, and that bat plays with high value. So Soderstrom's the guy for me, and the defense worries me. He was the backup catcher for his high school team because the other catcher was good defensively. That's a
Right.
bad look. Like if
Right.
this guy's going to catch in professional baseball and catch consistent 95 with sink and sliders and block and control running game, I would have at least liked to see him catch at the high school level consistently. So it definitely worries me, but athletes usually can convert to catcher pretty well and develop defensively over time.
And I think that's just another, again, because the stakes seem to be higher, because it's a 5-round draft this year. I think that's just another interesting position of how our organization is going to approach it. Again,
Mm-hmm.
unlike the NFL where they're not talking about an offensive lineman, you know that you need to draft a center because yours is on the way out, so you have to. Like, you're not quite sure where your needs are going to be down the road, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know that there's that position is a fundamental piece. They're hard to come by, really good ones. That's why the ones that are great we talk about so much, like the Yachty's, the Real Mutos.
Mm-hmm.
So it's interesting to hear you say that, and then it's hard to sit in that room and make a decision like, well, defensively, he was a backup catcher, he's a prep guy, and then like you have these guys who did it at the collegiate level and really performed. You talk about Bailey, he might not have been the best, but he might not have been a memorable at bat, but he still produced, and he did have better numbers than Rushman. So it's interesting. It's another position where it's like making that decision, like where you lean. If that's a position you value, do you take the prep guy with the high upside? Because hey, or are you an organization that like I'm going to take the prep guy because look, he is an elite athlete and we can move him. He can play other positions. That's valuable for us, right? So is Soderstrom the best guy available? And if I don't necessarily need that catcher, but that's a position of value, and I know I can always move him, then he does become that much more valuable as a guy.
I think before you move on, the Yankees have been big on catchers recently. They value catchers massively. I think the Diamondbacks are the same way. So I wouldn't be surprised if either of them got Soderstrom at the end of the first. I could see that. I mean, the Yankees kind of go out of the ordinary sometimes, at least recently they have in the first round. So it'd be interesting to see, but those are teams that value catching pretty highly and have been taking catchers, and always want an extra catcher. So it'll be interesting to see who's linked to them, but Bailey, I think, doesn't make it past 15. I mean, but even you mentioned the high floor, we keep going back to it. That's why a guy like Austin Wells just creeped into the first round. I mean, he's a good defender. He's got a good enough bat, and teams are like covet that position because it's a position of value. And if you can get a good starting catcher in the MLB out of this 5-round draft, I'm sure any team would be ecstatic from that.
Thank you for checking out the Backside Groundballs Baseball podcast on YouTube. If you want to listen to full episodes of the show, it is available on every podcast app. If you enjoyed this segment, feel free to subscribe to the podcast as well as here on YouTube. Be sure to help us in spreading the podcast to baseball fans everywhere by rating, reviewing, and most importantly, sharing. If you ever want to reach out with a question or just to talk baseball, feel free to follow us both on Twitter. Our inboxes are always open. Links are in the description.